Nigel Legin Anderson is a spoken word gospel hip-hop artist, podcaster, and speaker. Inspired by his father's battle with addiction, Legin speaks out about fatherlessness. He shares about his journey with healing and forgiveness.
I want to see the body of Christ not get better at doing, but just emulating more of who she is living out this ethic of forgiveness.
Legin created his name because Legin is Nigel spelled backwards. This demonstrates that Christ turned his life around. His testimony is one from hopelessness to hope. As a community advocate, Legin's heart champions pro-life, racial reconciliation, and urban apologetics. Legin says, if my story can help someone understand reconciliation and forgiveness, then I'll tell it in my music and on stage every chance I get.
Looking up the guide like, please guide my hand. He grabbed me by, said, you asked, I got the plan.
All right, well, please help me welcome Legin to the show. You are like the first in-person guest we've had in a really long time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and now it's a three-way interview, too.
I didn't realize that.
It's been a minute since we've done this.
I'm honored.
But welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
so a lot of your journey is inspired by your relationship with your father. Can you take us back to your childhood? What was that relationship like with your dad?
I mean, I don't remember much of it because I was 5 when we left. But I mean, I know he got addicted to substance abuse, alcoholism, right after I was born. So it was a totally different person who my mom married. And she had to decide, am I going to save my marriage or save my son? When he decided, I'm not going to give this up. So she moved back to Virginia Beach. He moved back to D.C., lived an addicted lifestyle, and I didn't see him for 15 years.
Wow.
But as you kind of alluded to there, you guys did reconnect in some way.
Yeah.
I think you were about 20 years old or so. What happened?
He sent a letter and said, I want to see you and apologize. So we came down to Virginia Beach. We met at Mahi's on the Strip. Really good fish. If you haven't been there.
Good food.
And we had a great dinner. And at the end, he said, would you forgive me? I said, no, I'll never forgive you for what you did to me. And I was enjoying being able to hurt him for a change. So he went back to D.C. And kept calling, trying to apologize. I would cuss him out and hang up. I was enjoying this moment. But a lady came to my job 6 months after that and said, hey, the Lord told me to tell you, if you don't get this bitterness out of your heart, you will never make it into the kingdom of heaven with that. And she just kind of walked out. Like, that was rude. But 3 months after that, I called them. We had a great conversation. I said, I forgive you. And we were talking about getting together. We had a great I forgive you, love you, let's move on moment. And we had that. But right after that phone call, he passed away. So that was our last conversation.
Wow. Well, what was that like? I mean, that obviously led you in a relationship with Jesus. How did that happen?
Well, just, Mom and Grandma had been preaching Jesus the whole time. I'd left church at this point. I didn't care anymore. But it was that, man, if I can forgive him, how much more do I need forgiveness piece? And it had me relook at the gospel, had me relook at who Jesus was. Why are you forgiving me? Well, because I need it. And that brought me to actually, just the brokenness of that whole moment brought me to my knees. And I wanted forgiveness for the stuff I'd done.
Wow,
I find it so compelling, too, Ashley, that here he's saying, I was enjoying not forgiving. A lot of us, we go through these tough relationships, and that's a dangerous thing to hold on to, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, man. I mean, we're scared to forgive because we think forgiveness means no justice. It's not going to be made right. And sometimes that's the case. But forgiveness is just letting the debt go. I'm relieving you of making right or paying back what was done wrong. I hope justice happens, and I hope reconciliation happens. But forgiveness is just letting it go. So it was a reversal of realizing I had a debt to pay to God that I can't, and Jesus paid it for me. And I just practically lived that out that brought me to the cross.
Amen.
Well, explain the name Legin. Our setup piece alluded to it, but how did you get that name?
It's just I saw when I was a little kid that was my name spelled backwards, and I just thought it was cool. But then when I came to Christ, it was like, yo, he's flipped my life around. So this has even, I mean, it was always my rap name. I used to rap way before Jesus, but like, it had more meaning now that this is my life turned around now for the glory of God. So that was the point. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your music career. Like, okay, so you just said you were rapping way before Jesus. So talk about that, and then how did your relationship with Jesus kind of then transform your music career?
Yeah. So I was producing, rapping in high school, making music, and stuff that wasn't glorifying God or whatever. And but I put it on the shelf, graduation, just trying to make a living. And then when I came to Christ, my girlfriend, now my wife, dragged me to a Christian hip hop concert, and I was like, that sounds so dumb. I don't want to go to that. You know what I'm saying? And I went there, and I saw guys in this area, some of whom I'm still friends with today, that were representing Christ and had the music I loved, and they were reaching people my church never reached.
Wow.
They were from my culture that I didn't think that the gospel was going to impact my culture at all, but I was like, wow, I was here.
Yeah.
And that night, I started making music again. I never stopped.
Come on, that's amazing.
There's a lot on your heart. You're very pro-life. And tell us about the Safe House Project. What's the passion behind these projects?
Well, I mean, for me, it's all protecting kids, because I had a great household, but with my father absent, I felt unprotected and vulnerable. I fell into things maybe I didn't if there was a strong man there. When I see kids that are unprotected in even worse situations than I was in, like my heart runs to that because of my experience, whether I've experienced what they're going through or not. So when it comes to like pro-life issues, it's like that child's unprotected. We want to protect that child, but even more so, what's going on with the mother and the father? Like, how do we wrap our arms around them and find out what they need and be more like whole life? When the baby's born, are we still there for them, right? Whole life. And then when it comes to Safe House, we were just on a mission trip. I saw a bunch of kids that the leaders of this orphan care center, shout out Dr. Marsh and Dr. Jenny, they said that they needed a safe house because some of their kids were being targeted by traffickers, especially as they started to develop.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we got to help. And so we made an album, and we wanted to use all the funds to help them build this house. And we got it up in 2019. But in 2017, shout out to Christy and Brittany, CEO and COO of Safe House now, they said, how do we expand this into the States? Because there's 300,000 kids here that are unprotected. And I was like, let's go. And so it's been running in this direction. I've never seen it going, and houses are popping up and children are being protected, and it's cool to see it happening.
That's awesome. Well, let's go back to like being pro-life. I mean, obviously in today's culture, it's kind of a hot button issue.
For sure.
And a lot of people, I think, can be afraid to kind of come out and say, hey, no, I am actually pro-life. So like, what word of encouragement would you give people who are kind of just like, they don't know how to approach it, or, you know?
I just say don't make it political. Like, it's got nothing to do with politics. I think a lot of people will politically manipulate your passions or make you feel like you shouldn't be that way, or manipulate your desire to be that way just to get a vote and then do nothing about it. I simply say, if somebody's in a situation where they feel like they have to end the life of a child, how did they get there? And how can you care for them? You know, y'all just played a story about it on the story before this. How do we take care of every need they have? And I would say is more than arguments and picket signs. It's getting in somebody's life and saying, how can I bring all the resources you need so that you don't feel like this is your only option? Because that's most of the time what I'm seeing.
Definitely. So. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Well,
let's talk about your latest project. It's called Rooftop Profit. Tell us about that. Like, what's the meaning behind that name?
I had this idea in my Apple Notes like 3 years ago, and it just made sense now to do it. But it's just this whole idea of, back to what I just said, the culture is typically manipulating passions left, right, in between, whatever. And particularly with this, it's the music industry. Everybody knows that violence and misogyny is not a good thing, but it's pushed not just through hip hop, through everything. And why aren't we calling it out? Why are we allowing ourselves to be sucked into that? So this is the thought of, Jesus says, what I whisper in your ear, shout it from the roofs. If I'm on top of the rooftop looking down, I'm not part of the crowd, I can see how we're being manipulated in messages, music, and media. And we can call it out and say something different. So that's the whole idea.
I love it. Yeah. Where can people listen to it?
Anywhere you get music. It's all digital. There's no physical CDs, but like anywhere you get music. We have a music video for every song that's on YouTube.
Nice.
Cool. And I have one more to drop from it. And it's out everywhere.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Legin, thank you so much. It's been an honor and blessing talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
And I just want to let everyone know, Legin's latest EP, Rooftop Profit, there we go, is out now and available on all social media platforms. You can also follow him on Instagram and other social media platforms and check out his website at legin.tv.